What's up, guys? Jason from Mountain Tackle. We're here at the beginning of October and it's swordfish season on the West Coast for us. This video for most of you guys is going to primarily pertain to us on the West Coast. A little bit of the information might cross over and some of the gear selections might cross over to the East Coast as well. But our West Coast fishery here has slowly developed into something a lot of people want to try and attain in catching a swordfish, daytime sword fishing. It's a little more difficult, right? What we lack here in numbers, we make up for in quality of fish caught. So we don't catch as many of those 90, 100, 150 pounders, right? We catch anything from that 90 pound to 300-400 pounds. We had a record fish caught in previous years down here in SoCal. That was a really decently sized fish. But what I have in front of me basically is the essentials that you're going to need to go catch it. I have some of the gear and I have some of the accessories and whatnot that it'll take to get your gear functional for that fishery. What we'll go through here and first and foremost is going to be your wind-ons, right? All this stuff we're pretty much uniform from the East Coast to the West Coast. We pack our reels full of 80-pound braid. Some of these will carry more than others. You kind of narrowed it down here over the years of doing this and spooling people's reels and dialing in them for this. 800-900 yards on a reel has been pretty much the most you need. You could go obviously to an 80 wide, or you could go to an LP and fit 3,000 yards of line on, but most of the time you're never going to use all that line. So what's the sense in paying for 3,000 yards or 2,000 yards of line that you're never going to use? But what you will need, without a doubt, is your tip wind-ons, right? And most of these tip wind-ons come in 150 feet lengths. We have one tip wind-on here from Boom Boom. We have some of the tip wind-ons here from Diamond and R&R. All of these great quality made products. The difference in a lot of these are going to be in like the Boom Boom, what they use most of the time. I don't know if you guys can kind of see this or not super well, but on these, it's actually a 500-pound loop on there instead of wax line. So a lot of guys will get sick of retying wax lines as they break through or something like that, and this lasts just that much longer on your reel. The other guys here, obviously, like I said, there's wax loops. I'm not sure if we could find any of these or see any of these here, but they're in the line here. I don't know if you can see that super well, but it's just a basic wax loop tied onto the line. Sometimes they'll snap, especially down here. We don't get a ton of current, right? So we gotta sometimes make our own drift. So when you're doing that, it's a lot of pressure on line, and wax, 70-pound wax floss does, I mean, it's strong, but it does break. Then you lose a $50-$60 weight, and that's kind of a bummer for a lot of us, since most of us are balling on a budget. The other thing you're gonna wanna think about is your buoy wind-on. What depths do you want your buoy wind-ons on here? We'll go over that part here once we go over gear selections and how you can set it up. But these buoy wind-ons here are from R&R. They make a couple from Diamond, and then Boom Boom makes one as well. And same thing with their loop. It's going to be a 500-pound braided loop on there. So it's going to be a little bit tougher. The other thing you're going to need some little mini diamond lights. And then you'll want to also get yourself some of the big LP lights also. Usually we go with about 2 of these on each of them. Some guys will double up on product just in case you lose a couple. And then I usually, myself, I only use 1 of these big LP lights on mine, but you might want to grab 2 just in case, you know, 1 to lose, 1 to use, kind of a deal. When you put those on, you're gonna put them on in line on the line so that they don't come off super easy, and you'll use the R&R rubber bands. They make these large 200 packs of rubber bands. They're a couple bucks. It's well worth investing. You use these kite fishing out here. You're going to use these for sword fishing out here and all sorts of other rigging applications that work really well. The other thing you're going to need is some 70-pound wax floss if you're going to be rigging your own baits or tying your own loops again on there. And you're going to need some of the rigging needles as well. That's like an essential piece of equipment that you'll need. And you may buy pre-done baits, like Boom Boom makes a premium bait here. They do it in a J hook, a circle hook, and then they make them skirted and unskirted. Sometimes you might get slashed up and you might run out of baits. You only brought 5, 6, 7 baits with you. Hopefully you have that good of a day. You might get bit by squid, you might get bit by sharks. You might have to sew a squid up and just get yourself going again, just to be be back in the game. And you'll need 70-pound wax floss, and you'll need your rigging needles to do that and to keep yourself in that game. The other one we look at is weights. There's a number of different stick leads you could use out there. Some guys go and buy rebar, recycle it, make a duct tape loop on it, and call it a day, and that's a cheap option. Not all of us have access to that kind of equipment. So there's stick leads here, a couple different versions, right? There's another stick lead here that is made by Magbay. These are already pre-coated, which we really like. It saves your gel coat. You can grab onto them a little bit easier too. They don't, when they roll around on the boat, or they don't roll around as easy. Either way, you're not going to do as much damage on your boat on these, and they're only a couple bucks more than your standard stick lead would be. I usually will go with anywhere from 8 to 12 pounds. Most of the time I'm using 10, 12 pounds, and the only reason I'm doing that is because I do bump the boat around a lot just to cover certain areas, or again, we don't get a very fast drift out here, so sometimes you got to make your own current, and that includes, bumping the boat around. What I use, and I think the East Coast kind of does this too a little bit, is I'll use a bridle here for my lead. And it's real simple. I got my long line clip on one side. I got some mono leader in between there. And I just put a little snap swivel that I crimped on here. That way I can change my leads out if I need to. Like if I'm using 9 pounds of lead, all of a sudden the wind picks up a little bit and I'm scoping out, then I just want to change my lead really easy, and I don't want to have 9, 10 different leaders flailing around on the boat. The other thing I do that's a nice little trick is, we'll go over this a little more and the reason why I do it later, but I attach to the long line clip on my weight, I attach my big LP light to that. We'll go over reasons why in a little bit on that one. But essentially these are everything that you're going to need to do that. The other option we have are the sword drill options. This will come more into play with gear selection, and we'll go over it a little bit later on as how I would pick or why I would pick that over something else. But essentially this is everything you'll need to do it. If you don't want to buy pre-rigged squids and you want to rig your own squids, you can always go to the markets and buy some squids and practice. You're going to tear a few up and fail a couple of times, but eventually you'll get it. There's a couple good videos out there too you could watch, and maybe one day we'll do one on how to rig some squids and kind of dial you guys in on that one if that's what you want to do. What we'll move on to next is gear selection. Because in front of us we have just a couple various setups that I picked out just to display and show you guys. Obviously there is a huge gamut of other stuff that you could use for attaining swordfish. A couple of those being like, I don't have a Talica up here, some of the Okuma Makaira stuff in their 50 and their 50 wide. The Penn 50 and 50 wide is another great combo too. We have some of the TLDs as well, and the LRS versions of those that would work. And those are all great price point models that you can get yourself into. You don't have to spend, a couple $1,000s on a setup. Yeah, this is not a cheap sport whatsoever, right? Once you put fishing in front of anything, it becomes double the price. Any of that stuff you could use. I always say with the swordfish stuff, if you're just starting, learn to walk before you run, right? So you might have some gear that you could try out and use already to see if this is something that you're into. Then by all means, come in with it. We'll tell you if it's a viable option or not. We're pretty honest here. I kind of train all our guys in here, and we all think the same way, where if you come in and you're like, hey, I've got this, Penn 4.0 Senator and I want to swordfish with it, we're gonna be like, you might want to think of something different. And if you can't afford something different, we kind of like to show you or point you in the direction of something that would be. And if it's not something we have on our shelf here, then we're like, hey, I just saw something on OfferUp that would be perfect in your price range for what you could get, and it looked pretty good. And that's kind of the relationship we want to kind of build with customers here. We're a shop that you can trust, and we're not just going to sell you some crap just because we're here to make a couple bucks. We're going to sell you something that would work best for you. With that being said, obviously in front of us here, I have a couple different options. I'm going to start with the one closest to me, which is a Tiagra combo. This is actually a full combo that I use myself a lot of the time, unless I'm borrowing some LPs from the shop or something like that. But this Tiagra works great for me. I have 900 yards of braid on it. I do these boom boom wind-ons on there. I do that mostly because I like the blue. I don't like clear wind-ons on my stuff, and that's something I can kind of go through on a different video. Or you can come in the shop and ask why. But this combo right here is like 1,900 bucks. You could bring that down a couple $100 by simply not getting the adjusted butt. But the adjusted butts are kind of like the only guys in the market that do a good quality butt that does this. And there's a lot of cases where I want it to be straight so I can get my buoy rod to sit up higher so I can move around it. And especially if you've got a fish on your tip rod and you don't have the time to bring your buoy rod in, you can kind of slowly free spool this and put this up high in the straight butt position. And then you have room to move around and not tangle your gear together or foul up in props if you're moving the boat around a lot with your buoy. I've seen a few videos of guys doing that where they get all tangled up in the buoy rod. And I mean, it could either go really, really south on you getting tangled up like that, or not, and you land the fish and everything's all good and you guys got a big mess you got to clean up and untangle or cut and retie. But this is a great option, and again, it comes like with the adjusted butt, it comes in around like 1,900 bucks. The one next to it here is a Daiwa Seaborg. This is the 1800 in the new Saltiga G models, and these are a great viable option for electric reels on a price point, we'll call it, right? Yeah, it's a $2,900 reel, but it is a couple $1,000s cheaper than the next thing up from it. The reason I like this new 1800 that they did, the spool's bigger, so you can fit a couple of buoy wind-ons on there if you want. It's got a bigger guide eye on the inside here so that the loops will fit through properly without having any trouble or cutting into your wax loops or cutting into your braid loops if you're using that type of wind-on. They've got bumped up gearing in them and drags and motors, so it's kind of like a souped up version of what they used to put out in like the 12s and the 800s in this. It also comes with a Bluetooth remote, which is pretty cool. All the new Saltiga models now and the G's, you can actually adapt this Bluetooth remote to work with them. It's pretty cool. If you're solo fishing, that's a really huge deal for you, especially something that's got a level wind on it. You can move the boat and operate the boat and still fight the fish off and on a variable speed. That is a great option to have, which is why this is one of our house picks in terms of like a relatively cheap electric reel, right? The other stuff I have on the other side, we'll go over here in a sec. This is on the higher end side. So once you get pretty deep into, deep drop sword fishing, you're going a lot. You want to have something that's just all electric or half and half, so you can still fight a fish on it, but still bring your gear up with electric. One of the things I mentioned I use most of the time on this Tiagra is I don't hand crank it up when I'm pulling my gear. I'm using the sword drill or the new easy lines. But I use the sword drill option because it's jointed and it's real easy to use and it locks on. It doesn't scratch your reel or mess anything up that way. So that's why I use that. They also make ones that adapt to the Talicas. They also make one that adapts for some of the Penn reels as well. So that's a killer option for the dude that I want to have gear that works for multiple purposes. I want something I could strip down and go use for tuna next season. And then when swordfish season comes, I can take my old spool out that I dumped all that other line onto and re-spool my reel and be ready for swordfish. We'll go over to the other side and we'll go over some of the electric reel combos here. The other options that we have up here are the LP and then the hooker electrics. The hooker electrics cover a vast array of sized reels, right? And they make them in detachable, they make a standard, and then they make a level wind auto stop. They make them, we'll remake them in the Tiagras, and then we also have them in the Penn International stuff. This one in front of us is the detachable. So if you're the guy that says, I don't want to use all electric, I want to be able to fight and stand up and fight this fish myself by hand, the detachable is an option for you. These come apart, the motor assembly comes apart on these ones real easily. I'm not sure if you could see super well, but these two pins are lock pins right here that lock on the motor. And then once you lock that and unlock it, we'll move all this crap out of the way. That whole motor assembly comes off. And once that happens, what you can actually do is you can full on fight this by hand the whole way up after that. But nobody wants to hand crank up 1,000 feet. Most of you guys are gonna get into this. You're gonna do the hand crank portion of this once or twice and be like, wow, that was really helmet. I don't wanna do that again. And then you'll go to either the drill attachments or start trying to step up into the electric game a little bit on those. A lot of you will probably see, we'll go to like the the drill attachments, just because it's the more economic version of that, and you could use them across the board for like you're bringing in your Mad Max and spreader bar, which is also pretty far behind the boat that you don't want to hand crank the whole time in, or a couple times a day in. The hooker electric in this particular model is about $4,600. That's not including braid and all that other stuff that goes along with it and your wind-ons. So it is quite a step up in price point, which, you know, again, may not be for everyone, but that is a great option if you are wanting to get into the electric market and still be able to hand crank. That's the only reel that really has that option to go ahead and do that. The other one I have here is the LP. The Lindgren Pitman. If you've seen us do these videos on these ones a couple times in the past and break down these reels, these are super robust reels, made in the U.S. product, completely made in the U.S. product in Florida. Our boys down at LP do a bang up job in terms of building reels for commercial folks. So you see a lot of guys with commercial gear on their boat or long liners, they've all got LP product on their boat. So with that being said, this is a really robust model. It is a little more expensive. These are about $6+ grand. I think they're 66 before tax on them, not including braid and everything else. This is one of our house demo models that we have here. We take them out and use them on our boats. We spool a lot of LP reels in the store. We've had this one for like 3 years now. I've never had an issue with it. We've done tons of fishing with it, and we've done thousands and thousands and thousands of miles and yards of line putting on to graphite spools for customers. So a lot of you, if you've ordered LP reels from us before and they're spooled, this is probably the model that spooled your reel up for you. But these are a great option for that. You can fit and pack a ton of line on these. And the nice part about them too, which I've said in other videos before, is you can change the spool out. So if you're out fishing today and you went and you're spreader bar fishing all day long, you're sick of fishing bluefin, it's towards the end of season, and it's spotty, you can come back in and on your way in, switch a spool out and go, oh, let's go deep drop. I saw like 3 fish on our way out this morning in the lee of the island. Let's go to the Avalon Bank or the 152 and let's go do a couple deep drops at the end of the day. We'll eat some food and hang out and then head back in after that. So that's a good option with this one. Yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but you'll never have to buy another reel. I almost promise you'll never have to send this in for servicing or repair. It's not going to break on you. The rods and the reels that are all together here, most of these I have like a little bit heavier version of a rod on this one. This is our dial. It's a DD80 rod. It's designed for 80-pound line, so it's got a real soft tip on it, but a firm backbone. You could fish 100-pound on it. It's got a firm enough backbone that you could do that. For most of us, we don't want to do that, especially East Coast wise. You guys have a lot more current than us, so that 80-pound and that 65-pound, we see you guys use them more often because it cuts through the water better. You don't get the scope. Out here, 80 is kind of our magic number. You know, you can land a pretty big fish on 80-pound. It's really hard to break it. Most of the time you'll see failures in other places before you'll see the line break itself. Next to it, I actually have this rod on a 50-80. It's another option. If you like a little bit softer of a rod for your tip rod, the 50-80 is a good option for you. It's got a really soft tip, but it does not have as firm of a backbone as our Dial 80 or our 6100. We have a couple other different rods that are not up here that are 80-130 rated, that are great tuna rods or buoy rods. I still like a bit softer of a rod tip, so I use the 6100 because I like something to, again, absorb that head shake that you get. All right, guys, so again, this was just kind of a little bit of samples of what you could be using to develop your own swordfish program on your own there. Again, we'll go from my left to right here, where we had the Tiagra set up. We really like this one again because we were using you can use this across the board. You can go do some trolling for tuna. You could use it for your kite program for tuna, and then switch all your gear over at the end of season when it starts to get spotty and far away, and transfer it all over to your deep drop program. And again, this is all compatible with any of the drill attachments, so you can pull your gear in, which is also a handy thing for you for your spreader bar and your Mad Mac fishing and stuff like that if you don't want to hand crank it in from 150 yards behind the boat or more. It's a really great option. Then in the middle here we have the Seaborg 1800, which again was really the only viable option in electric reels of this nature and size that you can use for the swordfish program. And that came down to some of the drag settings on this guy, the motor that's integrated into this newer version of these Saltigas. The spool size allows you to have the larger wind-ons that you need. Again, most of these are 100 to 150 feet of tip wind-on on this. And that's not something that you're able to do with any of the smaller Tanacoms or any of the smaller Seaborgs or anything like that, let alone the fact that most of those Tanacoms and smaller reels of that nature are not equipped to fight that big of a fish without destroying the reel. Yeah, they might do it once or twice, but again, you're gonna fry that reel once you get to actually fighting that powerful of a fish on them. But they're great for the rest of the program and stuff for your kites and bottom fishing and etc. The other one we had was the detachable hooker. Again, inside the store at any given time, we have every model available in these hooker electrics from Tiagras and Internationals. So if you want to come hold them and touch them before you spend that much money on a reel, we encourage you to come in the store. We can plug them in for you, show you how they work, and see if that's going to be something that fits into your program for you. And then we have the LPs that we showed you here, and they're the do-all reel again, and it's commercial grade equipment. You're not going to have any issues or have to come back to me and say, hey, this reel is malfunctioning or anything like that. Not that any of these other reels will have that problem, but this is just literally a bulletproof reel that I've never had to service or help anybody out with any of these reels like this. And all the accessories down below here, we had all the wind-ons, we have all the lights and all the other equipment and rubber bands and rigging needles. 70-pound wax floss is usually the magic number if you're rigging your own baits or if you have to redo a loop on your line. We've got coated and uncoated weights. We've got everything you need to start this program out on your own. And if you want some of the knowledge and just to come pick our brains on it, we're happy to help you inside the store here. You can either go to our Anaheim or our Newport store. You could call Andrew over the phone. He's really well versed in this too and done it and caught some really large fish out here on the West Coast as well. If you want some of these other tips or tricks or anything like that, or really want to pick our brain further, please come in. Come talk to us or call us on the phone and we're happy to help you. We hope we see you in the store.